How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to Movie Talk, and welcome back to another box office update where Despicable Me 4 is absolutely killing it at the box office. So I'm going to do things a little bit differently. So I'll show the entire list of the top 10 and I'll just talk about each and one individually, just so you kind of get a whole thing to look at the entire time. So as you see, Despicable Me 4 is absolutely crushing it. So $122.6 million over the full 5-day weekend. Because you got to remember, it didn't release Friday normally. It released Wednesday. It released Wednesday, I believe. And so it kind of got a little bit of an extra boost because with 4th of July, with everyone wanting to go out doing things, it kind of helped the box office a lot. And especially because with family movies during the summer, it's you get way more money normally and during the week because kids don't have school, so they can go out and watch the movies with their parents or anything really. And so that helped a lot of the box office. But yeah, $122.6 million world domestic. The worldwide is sitting at about 229.9 million, something like that. Basically, about $230 million. And so it's a very good number. Those are very good numbers. I really think people kind of forget sometimes just how big of a box office that Despicable Me can be, because a lot of the moviegoers were actually a lot of Gen Z. A lot of Gen Z showed up for the movie this time around because, I mean, like I said, like that's the reason why I wanted to go see it, was because I was so pumped about the nostalgia. And like I certainly did feel that. I hated the movie, me personally, but I mean a lot of audiences are really loving it. So currently, right now, Despicable Me 4 is sitting at an A cinema score, which is a good rating. It's a very good, solid rating. In case you don't really know about cinema score, it's basically this company, Cinema Score itself. It goes to random theaters around the country, like either in like Los Angeles, New York, like places in Texas, just different theaters. And it'll, after people leave the movie, they get an option to fill out a little survey, and it just kind of shows like what people liked about it, like why they went to the movie and what grade they give it. And so you can't really look at it the same as like in high school where C's get degrees. That's not how cinema score works in the movies. And I mean, you want to have an A at the bare minimum, because if it's a B plus, that's not a very good cinema score. You really want it to be at an A. And so Despicable Me 4, it did get an A. So it's just proof that, I mean, people are loving these movies, that wanted to go back. And I mean, I'd be shocked if a sequel isn't announced sometime soon, because it's really just proving that this franchise is such a powerhouse at the box office. Inside Out 2 actually came in second place. I was curious about what kind of drop it had. I thought it'd have a little bit more of a drop than it actually did. It actually only had a 42% drop, which you got to remember, this is the fourth weekend. So, I mean, obviously 42%, 33.1 million total in the weekend. It is doing extremely well. It is doing so unbelievably well. I mean, $1.2 billion worldwide already. I know a lot of people have been questioning if Deadpool 2 could end up beating that and become the highest grossing movie of the year. I've been waiting to wait until I've seen Inside Out 2's full box office, and just seeing that just the fourth weekend, it's made 1.2 billion worldwide. I don't think it's going to do it. I think Inside Out 2 will be the biggest movie of the year. I don't think any other movie is going to really get. I mean, there's going to be plenty of movies that get close, but I think Inside Out 2 might end up finishing its worldwide gross around 1.3 to 1.4 billion dollars. And I mean, that's still not saying that I fully believe that Deadpool and Wolverine is going to have a billion. It's going to be $1 billion movie. I would be shocked. I'd be absolutely shocked if it didn't get to the $1 billion mark. But how far into the billions that it will go, I really don't think it's going to go that much. Still, just talking about Inside Out 2, it's a big win for Disney, especially because they've needed a big win for a while now. And I'm really happy that this movie's doing good. I say this every weekend that I can. I love this franchise. I think they can do so many things with this franchise. And I hope it continues to make even more money, because I want to see an Inside Out 3 so bad. Quiet Place Day 1 came in at number 3. It actually had a big drop. Like, I was not expecting this. A 60% drop, which, I mean, it's not good. You don't want a drop in the 60s. And because like this is definitely like back during the days of like 2020 and 2021 where like all the movies are having giant drops, and I don't think it's as concerning as what it could be, because it's still like just a hair under two. Well, I say just a hair. It's about $170 million worldwide. I want to see the third weekend and see how big of a drop that has, because right now I think it could end its total run at around 300 million, which is about the same as the rest of the movies. All the other ones, I mean, they haven't really gone that far past 300 million, and so I don't think that Quiet Place Day One will be like the highest grossing movie of the franchise. But again, like I think it's starting to get to the point where like you can start to expect how much these Quiet Place movies are going to make. They have a strong audience that likes to come back to these movies, and I mean it's not like other horror movies where like you're limited on the audiences because a lot of people don't like scary movies. This franchise, especially the main ones, it was movies where like they're scary, but like a lot of people can go to watch them. Because I personally know people who don't like scary movies and they like A Quiet Place because it's the perfect mix of a good family story with good scares in between. And I think it has a strong audience that it can rely on. It just can't have an inflated budget to the point where like it starts losing money. I think studios are starting to know that that's about how much it's going to be making, and just keep the budget enough to where it can still make a profit. And I mean, the longer these movies goes, they slowly start ticking up, because I mean, Quiet Place Part 2, that was right when like movie theaters started to come back, and so that still made like just barely under 300 million, which I believe if there wasn't anything, like none of the theaters were shut down for a full year, that I think that it could have had about like a 450 $500 million box office. And so I want to see what Quiet Place Part 3 does, because that's, I think, is the most interesting story to be looking at. How well is the main Quiet Place movie is going to be? Now we start getting to some of the more usual suspects. So Bad Boys Ride or Die comes in number 4. I mean, it's still showing a great, strong box office hold from weekend to weekend. I mean, I'm not going to spend too much time. It's going to probably end up making about, it's not going to make 400 million, but it's going to get probably about like 360, I'd say. I mean, there's nothing new to talk about this, so I just won't waste anyone's time. One thing I was interested in, MaXXXine came at number 5 with $6.7 million, which my original video I projected the numbers to be way higher. I should have known that MaXXXine wasn't going to be a big moneymaker, especially because I mean, hindsight, I didn't know that the movie was going to be so painfully mediocre, and so I I'm not really surprised that this is about what it expected, because especially after I saw the movie, I realized there's probably not going to be a lot of people going to see this, and so I expect the total box office run to be around like 15-20 million for domestic, I should say. I'd say domestic about 15 million. They haven't released the worldwide numbers yet. I don't know if they're really going to, because I don't know how big this movie is going to be internationally. So it might just be more of just like a domestic release and nothing really more. Because I want to talk about Horizon. That's really what's going on with that. That's coming up next. And but really, like, I don't know, I was really disappointed with MaXXXine. I thought it could have been so much more than what it ended up being. But yeah, I mean, I'm curious what the next weekend's going to look like. Now, I did say I'm going to talk about Horizon. So 5.5, roughly $5.5 million second weekend, only about a 50% drop, which is really interesting because I expected far more. I was thinking it was going to be in the 60s, like mid 60s. I didn't think people were going to come back to this movie. And I mean, people are still watching it. I mean, it's only made 22 million domestically. I think it's like just a hair under 30 million worldwide. I mean, we're not getting a part 3 and 4. That's all clear. But I hope at least part 2 can be good and enjoyable, but because the box office really isn't looking great for it. Now, number 7 is Sound of Hope. And if you don't know what that is, it's Angel Studios' new movie that they're doing. And it's looking like it's getting a pretty decently strong box office so far. To no one's surprise, it has an A plus cinema score. I mean, the only people that are going to be going to this movie are the people that really enjoy Angel Studios movies. And I've only ever seen Sound of Freedom, so I haven't seen a lot of the movies. I thought it was a fine movie. I mean, I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. I thought it was a fine movie. There's definitely flaws that it had, but it was a good movie in certain aspects. And so it's not like I hate it or anything. I thought it was a very fine movie. And so I haven't really been listening to a lot about Sound of Hope, but I mean, people who go to see this movie are liking it. Granted, the only people that are going to see this movie are the ones that really love Angel Studios. But it's a pretty decent start. I mean, we're not going to really ever see numbers like Sound of Freedom had for probably a long time. And so these kinds of box office, it's pretty much everything that Angel Studios really needs, because there's a very, very loyal audience in Central America, and not Central, in Middle America. And so these are about the numbers that I say everyone should be expecting every time they release a new movie. Like, do like expect it like around like fifth to eighth place opening weekend, and I think it's a safe number to always assume. And I mean, I'm glad for them that they have a really strong audience, because I mean, there's always room for different types of studios and different types of movies to always be made. And I mean, I've always been complaining about Christian media for the longest time that it's just it's all focused on the message without making a good movie. And then who knows, Angel Studios. So I mean, The Chosen. I've never seen The Chosen, but I've actually heard it's like genuinely good, like from like people who aren't necessarily religious. So still saying that like The Chosen is a good film, to good TV series. And so I've never checked it out, but like I'm slowly more and more curious about it. But yeah, I mean, it's a good number for them for opening seventh place this weekend. Kalki 2898 AD came out to eighth place this weekend. And I should point out that these Indian movies, they really have terrible second weekends. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, I still remember RRR had probably around this, about 60 to 70% drop. And this is no different. So a 68% drop. It made just under $2 million. I mean, it's doing good overall. But I mean, it's just like that's the problem with a lot of these Indian movies, is that like people go to see them opening weekend and that's it. Nobody watches them else any other time. And so I really wish that people would slowly start to grow and rewatch these Indian movies like this, because I'd love to see a time where like more of these Bollywood movies slowly start to break out in America and start to do better. Because I mean, I always say that it's always good to have all different types of movies. I talk about how much I'm happy about Angel Studios. I'm going to talk about how much I like about Indian movies. I mean, I feel like for movies to succeed, you need to get all different types of stories coming out from all different perspectives. And Indian films are no different. And so eventually I'll maybe check it out. I mean, depending on when it's streaming, I might have forgotten about it because there's so many new movies coming out. It's hard to keep track. But I mean, I'm happy nonetheless for them. Bikeriders came down to number 9. I mean, this is just the depressing story of the week for the box office. It's doing horrible in the box office. It's nothing I really want to add to it. It just sucks, but I mean, this is probably the last weekend you're going to see it in the top 10. And then rounding out the top 10, same as it did last week, is Kinds of Kindness, which I watched that movie, and after seeing it, I am not at all surprised that this movie made less than the first weekend, because technically they're counting the first weekend as when they expanded it to about 500 cities, and so that for that weekend where there was only 5 theaters playing, it didn't really count. But so yeah, technically, legally, this is the second weekend of the box office, and it grew about 400 theaters, and it managed to make less money than it did last week. Which honestly, I'm not surprised, because this is not a movie for general audiences. I mean, granted, it's designed to be rewatched. I'm going to be rewatching it. So, in case you've been wondering, I didn't do a review like I normally do after I watched Kinds of Kindness, because I was so profoundly interested in this story and all the themes, and like I didn't really have a lot of words to say about it, and I didn't want to just have like a really bad just like rushed review. And so I'm going to go be seeing it. The review should be coming up sometime this week, and so I will watch that movie eventually. But it's hard to find a time that I can go see it, but I will tell you I will get a review up sometime this week. But yeah, it's really not a movie designed for general audiences. I mean, it's no surprise that it's not a big money maker. Granted, it's only $15 million, the budget, but it also only has been making about 9 million. I don't know if that's the most updated numbers, but last time I checked, it was 9 million. But I mean, if they're counting this weekend too, then it's not like it's going to make a much of a difference. Now, what's coming out next weekend? So there's two big movies that there's going to be releasing: Longlegs and Fly Me to the Moon. Let's look at Fly Me to the Moon first, because I think that's going to overall be the bigger movie. So the box office projections is going to be about 12 to 18 million. I agree with that number. I think that's about what it's going to be. I'd be more specific with like around like 15 to 20. I don't think it's going to go quite as low as 12, but I would be comfortable with saying, oh, kind of comfortable with saying that 15 to 20 million is about what I'm expecting. Now, the other movie coming out, Longlegs, is I just want to say I am so insanely pumped for this movie. I remember when Neon first started to release those little teas, like 1 minute teasers of the movie. Like there was a month where they released 4 teasers and they didn't show the name of the movie at all or nothing. I really do believe Longlegs probably has one of the best marketing campaigns in years. Like probably next to, like, I'd say I haven't been this hyped for a movie since like I'd say like Avengers Endgame, really, with like how much excitement had been built around. Like there's certainly been like big movies that I've been super excited about, but really in terms of like this much hype, like deep in my chest, that like I get so happy every time I think about it. It's Longlegs. And I can't really find projections, like official projections for it. So I guess I'm just gonna have to go off my own. And I mean, judging from MaXXXine's projections, I'm not very good at it, but I'll try to do my best. So, okay, so let's just do a little bit of critical thinking. So, MaXXXine had about a $6.7 million opening weekend. That's based off an existing franchise, but also it's based off of a movie that wasn't really very well received. And so, judging by that, like the marketing wasn't really that crazy. But then you look at a movie like Longlegs, where the marketing has been insane. I've been loving everything that they've done with the marketing, and along with great word of mouth. So I mean, they didn't do any of the actual big reviewers, but I mean, all like the horror reviewers for Rotten Tomatoes, it's so currently sitting at a 100%. And so a lot of people have been seeing that. A lot of people have seen reviews from like IGN or someone, and seeing like people talking about like it's a good movie that people should go watch. And so I think it's going to get a lot of people excited about it. I want to see the actual reviews because I believe they're not actually dropping until Wednesday. And so I wouldn't really be concerned with that. I think the only reason they're waiting so long for like the big reviewers to do this stuff is because they want to keep that 100% of Rotten Tomatoes for marketing reasons. And so I think that it's probably going to end up being like, I would say around like 80%. I don't think it's going to end up being like one of the greatest horror movies of our generation, as like what they're trying to make it out to sound like it is. But I think it's going to be a very good horror movie. I'm super excited for it. And so with that all being said, I'd give it around, I'd say about $5 to $10 million, which is low, but also you got to think that it's kind of a limited audience. I mean, the people that really wanted to go see this are like the horror people, like the big horror people that love to see all different types of horror movies. And so I can see a worst case scenario only making 5 million, just because like especially like MaXXXine also had A24 backing it behind it. But also I can see it going pretty good. I can see about 10 million. I don't think it's going to be a giant box office draw. I I want to have my inner horror fan in me saying that it's going to release $20 million opening weekend. I don't believe that. I thinking realistically here, I don't think it's going to have an insane box office run, but it's going to largely rely on people going back to rewatch it for the rest of the weekends. And so that's why I really expected just to have about 10 million max. You know what? 12 million. I'd say 5 to 12 million. I think best case scenario, it can get 12 million. It can get a lot of people, like way more people going to it than initially thought. And I think that's the best case scenario for this movie. And so, yeah, that's the box office for this weekend. I mean, do you agree with me? Disagree with me? I mean, what do you feel about the numbers? How do you feel about Despicable Me being so insanely good? How do you feel about MaXXXine doing very lower than what people were hoping for? I mean, tell me all your thoughts, really. And if you want, like and subscribe to the channel. If you enjoy seeing these kinds of videos, I love making them and I love sharing them, my thoughts out to the internet, talking about how I feel about everything. And I mean, that's really all I have to say about the box office. So it's movie talk. See ya.